The decision hit me like a physical blow halfway through my third cup of lukewarm airport coffee. It wasn't planned, it wasn't rational, but the persistent knot tightening beneath my ribs, the one that had been growing for weeks despite my son Marco's cheerful texts, demanded action. Just go, a voice insisted, now. So I did. I abandoned the meticulously planned quarterly review at my consulting firm, booked the next flight out of Chicago O'Hare, and boarded without telling a soul where I was going. My tote bag held 2 jars of my signature spiced pear conserve, Marco's childhood favorite, and a small, worn stuffed rabbit I'd found buried in my attic, its button eyes still bright. Not because his wife, Lucia, was expecting, as far as I knew, but because her last voice message, thin and strained, whispering, "Mama Sophia, the headaches, they won't stop," weeks ago, had lodged itself deep in my gut. Mothers feel these things, the old women in my Brooklyn tenement building used to say. I always thought it was metaphor until the icy dread became my compass, pulling me south. The Atlanta airport air clung to me like damp gauze, thick, humid, smelling faintly of jet fuel and fried food, a stark contrast to Chicago's crisp autumn bite. My phone remained stubbornly silent. 3 days of calls to Marco's number went straight to voicemail, a monotonous drone that scraped my nerves. Lucia's line had been dead for over a week. The silence screamed. I hailed a cab, the cityscape blurring past the window, lush greenery giving way to dense neighborhoods, the architecture shifting from sleek modern to older, sturdier brick. My heart hammered against my ribs. Why hadn't they answered? Why the silence? The condo I'd bought them 4 years ago, a solid pre-war building with a wrought iron gate and a tiny courtyard fragrant with jasmine, felt like a monument to my hope. A foundation, I'd told myself, so they'd never know the scramble I knew. Now, it felt like a gilded cage I might have inadvertently built. Stepping out of the Uber, the humid air wrapped around me. The building looked imposing, secure. But the front door? It hung slightly ajar. Not locked, not fully closed, just abandoned. A cold prickle ran down my spine. Pushing the heavy wood open with my shoulder, the smell hit me first. Stale cigarette smoke, sharp and acrid, cutting through the expected scent of home. Marco swore he'd quit after Lucia's asthma flared. "It's bad for the baby, Mama," he'd promised, flashing that charming, persuasive grin. The living room was chaos. Scattered boots, one kicked against a coat rack, leaving a scuff on the cream paint. A mountain of unwashed dishes teetered on the coffee table beside congealed takeout containers and empty liquor bottles. Expensive cognac, the kind I'd bought for celebrations. But worse, much worse, were the pink and white envelopes spilling from a side table, unopened bills, and beside them, a small sealed box labeled Metformin and Lisinopril, Lucia Rossi. Dust coated it like a shroud. My breath hitched. 6 months prescribed, untouched. Where was my daughter-in-law? Where was my son? What happens when a mother's intuition becomes a terrifying reality? What secrets lie behind that open door? Share your theories below. Have you ever ignored that gut feeling only to regret it? The neighbor, Mrs. Gable, emerged from her doorway like a specter, wrapped in a faded floral housecoat. Her eyes, magnified behind thick glasses, held a mixture of pity and weary resignation. "You must be Marco's mother," she rasped, peering at me. "Saw you pull up. Been waiting for someone." My throat tightened. "Where are they? Marco? Lucia?" Mrs. Gable shook her head slowly, her silver hair trembling. "Marco? Out. Somewhere. Music blasting till 3 a.m. most nights, then gone by dawn. Lucia," she paused, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Ambulance took her 2 days back. Looked terrible, poor dear. Just slipped out while he was gone. Nobody's been back since. Place smells awful." She gestured vaguely towards the apartment. "Thought I'd call the landlord, but, well, you showed up." 2 days. The words echoed. Slipped out. My legs felt like water.
"City General Hospital?" I managed, the name scraping out. She nodded. "Nearest trauma center. That's where they take the emergencies." The world tilted violently. I don't remember walking to the street, hailing the cab, only the frantic pulse in my temples and the single crushing thought, City General, ICU. The ER waiting room was a purgatory of fluorescent lights and low moans. Bleach and despair hung thick in the air. Nurses moved with practiced efficiency, eyes scanning charts, not people. My usual polite reserve evaporated. I became a force, pushing past the waiting line, demanding the admission log, my voice surprisingly steady as I repeated, "Lucia Rossi, married name Rossi Marco, ICU." The clerk, startled by my intensity, flipped pages. Here, ICU, room 312, critical condition, pneumonia, severe dehydration. The rest blurred.
The ICU hallway was unnervingly quiet, broken only by the electronic symphony of monitors, steady beeps, rhythmic whooshes. A nurse blocked the doorway to room 312. "Family only, ma'am." "I am family," I stated, my voice cutting through the sterility. "Her mother-in-law. Let me see her." The nurse hesitated, then stepped aside, muttering into her radio. Dr. Eris Thorne emerged, his face etched with exhaustion. "Mrs. Rossi Marco? I'm Dr. Thorne. Lucia's pneumonia is advanced, bilateral. Her body, it's failing. Severe malnutrition, dehydration. She hasn't eaten properly in weeks. Ran a high fever for days. If neighbors hadn't heard a fall, he didn't need to finish. Weeks, days, alone. Where was Marco? The man who vowed in sickness and in health. Could he truly be oblivious? Or worse, indifferent? How does a vibrant young woman end up fighting for her life utterly alone? What dark secrets led to this moment? And where exactly is her husband? The answers will shock you. Keep reading. Pushing open the ICU door felt like stepping onto another planet. The air was colder, sharper. Lucia lay impossibly small beneath thin blankets, connected to a labyrinth of tubes and wires snaking to humming machines. Her face, usually full and warm, was gaunt, almost skeletal. Cheekbones protruded sharply. Her skin had a waxy, translucent quality. This wasn't just illness. It was the slow erosion of neglect. My breath caught, a painful sob threatening to escape. I needed air, now. I mumbled an apology to the nurse and stumbled into the corridor, leaning against the cool wall, gasping. The sterile smell of the hospital couldn't mask the underlying scent of decay I associated with Lucia's apartment. Minutes later, steadier but hollow, I walked back towards the exit. The automatic doors hissed open. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows. City traffic roared, a relentless river of headlights and noise. People hurried, oblivious. And then, screeching tires, a massive midnight blue SUV fishtailed around the corner, tires smoking, engine roaring like a beast. It slowed, windows down, blasting deafening hip-hop that rattled the hospital windows. Inside, laughing, head thrown back, one hand off the wheel, Marco. Beside him, two young women shrieking, waving at passersby. He was wearing the designer jacket I had bought him for his promotion, the one he'd bragged about on social media. The SUV I had gifted him 6 months ago, for safety, for the future kids, he'd said, beaming. My gift, my money, my name still on the title, a detail I'd kept for insurance purposes, a joke I'd made light of. He sped past, a blur of blue metal and careless noise, heading straight for the downtown nightlife district. He hadn't glanced up, not towards the ICU window where his wife clung to life. Not once. The message on my phone lit up. His number. "Ma, stuck at hospital with Lucia. It's bad. Docs are working hard. Pray for us. Love you." Pray for us? From the man who just drove past his dying wife with strangers and loud music? The cold fury that surged wasn't hot anger. It was glacial, absolute. Something fundamental snapped. Not my heart, but the last thread of blind maternal loyalty. The boy who scraped his knee was gone. In his place stood a stranger, wrapped in entitlement and cruelty. I didn't scream. I didn't call. Screaming is for the weak. I felt terrifying clarity. He drove past her while she died. Witnessing your son abandon his dying wife for a joyride? What would you do? Would you call the police? Would you forgive? This mother chose a path that will change everything. Don't miss the fallout. I walked back into the hushed lobby, the plastic water cup cool in my hand. 10 minutes. That's all I needed. 10 minutes to bury the son I knew and confront the monster he'd become. I sat rigid in a hard plastic chair, staring at the closed ICU doors. Memories flashed. Marco as a boy, showing off his first drawing, a lopsided house with 3 sons. His solemn promise at his wedding to Lucia. I'll cherish her always. Lies. All lies. The man who sped past his wife didn't cherish. He consumed. He destroyed. The car, my car, registered in my name, a loophole I'd kept, thinking it prudent. Now, it was my weapon. My phone vibrated, another unknown number, probably Marco, panicking. I silenced it. Instead, I opened my contacts. Adora Chen, my oldest friend, a corporate attorney whose sharp mind and zero tolerance for nonsense were legendary. She answered on the second ring, her voice crisp despite the late hour. Sophia, is everything all right? You sound different. Adora, I breathed, my voice unnervingly calm. I need documents, tonight. A deed of gift, the condo, 215 Oakwood Lane. Transfer it, not to Marco, to Lucia, solely to Lucia Rossi. Silence. Heavy, knowing silence. Adora knew me, knew my devotion to Marco. This wasn't impulsive, this was nuclear. Sophia, are you certain? That property is worth nearly $500,000. Are you sure this is what you want? Absolutely certain, Adora. And a general power of attorney in my name effective immediately for all matters concerning that property. I need it drafted, signed, notarized tomorrow morning. Double your emergency rate. Just get it done. Consider it done. Be at my office at 8 a.m. Bring ID. She didn't ask for details. Good. Some things didn't need explanation. We hung up. The sterile lobby felt charged. Outside, the city lights glittered. Indifferent, I closed my eyes, imagining flashing police lights pinning Marco's blue chariot to the curb, imagining the smirk wiped clean. But the car was just metal. Lucia's life, her future, that was the real prize. And I would secure it. Starting now.
Rehook. What legal maneuver could a mother make in a single night to protect her injured daughter-in-law? And what dark secret might Marco have hidden in the property records? The attorney holds the key. Dawn bled gray light through Adora's office window as I signed the final document. My hand didn't shake. The deed transferring 215 Oakwood Lane to Lucia Rossi alone felt heavy, final. As Adora stamped it, she slid a thin blue folder across the desk. While I was pulling the title abstract last night, Sophia, I found something troubling. She opened it, revealing bank statements and a loan application. Marco applied for a quick cash advance from a predatory lender, Fast Cash Now, 10 days ago, for $25,000. Collateral? She tapped a photocopy. Copies of the condo deed. And she slid over another paper, a power of attorney. Forged. Your signature, but the O in Sophia is elongated, sloppy. He was trying to mortgage your asset, using your name to cover gambling debts. The pieces crashed together. The unpaid bills, the stolen jewelry Lucia mentioned in passing months ago, the sudden business trips Marco took. It wasn't just irresponsibility, it was a systematic looting. He'd been bleeding Lucia dry, stealing her security, and now he'd tried to steal her home. The heating turned off in winter? Not just neglect, a calculated move to save pennies for his next bet. The untouched medication? Irrelevant next to the thrill of the gamble. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a lost boy. This was a predator living in our home, preying on the woman I considered my daughter. Odora, I said, my voice like stone. The car. I dealt with it this morning. I explained the police report, the impound, the sale to the dealership, the funds redirected to City General for Lucia's care. He has nothing left, Odora. No car, no home equity, No access to funds. Just deaths and consequences. Odora nodded grimly. The loan sharks will come for him now. Violently. He's painted a target on his back. A new worry surfaced. And Lucia? What if he tries to contact her, beg, threaten? Then he faces trespassing charges, I stated. I've instructed the building super and the police precinct monitoring the case. No contact. Ever. I picked up the signed deed. Register this electronically, now. Make it irrevocable. As Odora processed it, I dialed the dealership. Alex? Sophia Vance. The blue SUV? Sold. Today. For parts. Full amount to City General Hospital Lucia Rossi's account. No exceptions. The weight of finality settled. Marco was cut off. Utterly. The war for Lucia's life had just entered a new, ruthless phase.
With the deed signed and the car sold, Marco is truly alone. But what happens when desperate men come calling for his gambling debts? And how will Lucia react when she learns the truth about her husband? The storm is far from over. Returning to City General, the fluorescent lights seemed harsher, the beeping monitors more urgent. I went straight to Lucia's room. She was awake, propped up slightly, her eyes huge and shadowed in her pale face, but clear, focused. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by fresh anguish. She looked broken, not just by illness, but by exhaustion, by something deeper. "Lucia, Cara, how are you feeling?" I took her hand, cool and fragile in mine. She managed a weak smile. "Better, Mama Sophia. The machines, they help." Her voice was a whisper. "Marco?" My throat closed. Should I tell her? About the car, the deed, the gambling, the sheer staggering betrayal? She deserved the truth, but was now the time? I chose carefully. "He's dealing with some things, Tesoro. The police were involved with his car. He's not here right now." I kept it vague, shielding her from the worst. Her eyes filled with tears. He said he was here all night, holding my hand." The devastation in her voice was a knife twist. He'd lied to her, even in her vulnerability. He'd used her illness as cover for his absence, then fabricated concern. The depth of his deception was staggering. Later, alone in the quiet room while Lucia dozed, I searched their apartment again, not for bills this time, but for proof. In the bottom drawer of Lucia's nightstand, beneath spare linens, I found it. A small, cloth-bound journal. Lucia's handwriting, usually neat, became increasingly frantic, cramped. March 3rd. Marco lost big at the track again. Took my grandmother's pearl earrings I saved for years. Said he'd replace them double. Haven't seen them since. Told me to stop being a baby. April 18th. He hit me. Slapped me when I asked about the money for the electric bill. Said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I lost custody of my nephew who lives with us. I'm so scared. May 10th. He turned off the heat. Said it was too expensive while I had pneumonia. I was shivering under 3 blankets. He slept in the other room, laughing on the phone with friends. I thought I'd die alone in the dark. June 1st. He says the condo is his, that Mama Sophia gave it to him. Says I'm just a guest. He showed me papers. Fake ones, I think. He's planning something with the house. I feel trapped. Tears blurred the ink. This wasn't just a bad marriage. It was domestic terrorism, financial abuse, emotional torture, physical violence, all hidden behind closed doors while I worried about surface things. Marco hadn't just failed Lucia. He'd actively tried to destroy her. My resolve hardened into diamond. Every lie, every theft, every moment of neglect was documented. This journal wasn't just evidence, it was my moral compass. I tucked it safely into my bag. Lucia wouldn't need it in court, she'd need it to heal, but I needed it to ensure I never wavered again. A hidden diary reveals a nightmare Lucia endured alone. How much more can she bear? And what final devastating secret does it hold about Marco's plans for her home? The truth is darker than imagined. The next morning, Lucia's condition worsened. A spike in fever, plummeting oxygen levels. The nurses moved with increased urgency. I sat by her bedside, holding her hand, murmuring reassurances while my mind raced. Marco's release from jail was imminent. Adora confirmed he'd been charged with grand theft auto, DUI, and resisting arrest. He'd be out, angry and desperate within hours. He'd come here, to her. As if summoned by my thoughts, the door hissed open. Marco stood there. But not the arrogant playboy of the SUV. This Marco was diminished. His designer shirt was stained and rumpled. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes. A fresh cut split his lip. He limped slightly, favoring his right leg. Yet the old entitlement flashed in his eyes as they scanned the room, landing on me, then Lucia. "Mama!" His voice was hoarse, pleading. He rushed towards me, ignoring the nurse trying to block him. "You have to help me. They won't let me see Lucia. Cops are saying I stole your car. That's insane. It's my car. You gave it to me." His narrative was already rehearsed, victimhood dripping from every word. I didn't flinch. "Sit down, Marco," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Lucia needs rest." He whirled on me, the mask slipping. "Rest? While you're trying to steal my house? I saw the papers online. You signed it over to her? After everything I've done? After I'm trying to save her?" He gestured wildly at Lucia, who shrank back, her eyes wide with fear. "She needs me. I'm her husband." "She needs peace," I corrected, stepping slightly between them. "She needs to heal without the man who turned off her heat and sold her grandmother's pearls for gambling chips." His face went slack with shock. "How do you know about—" "I know everything, Marco," I cut him off, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "The journal, the lies, the debts, the forged power of attorney. You gambled away her security, her health, her dignity. You drove past this hospital window while she fought for her life, laughing with strangers. You are not her protector. You are her greatest threat." His expression shifted from shock to fury. "You're lying. She doesn't believe you. Lucia, tell her. Tell her I love you. Tell her we'll get through this together." He lunged towards her bed, reaching out.
"Marco, no!" Lucia cried out, shrinking back, her monitor alarm blaring as her pulse spiked. Nurses rushed in. A security guard I'd quietly arranged with Dr. Thorne stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Marco's chest. "Sir, you need to leave, now. You're disturbing a critical patient." "Get your hands off me!" Marco sputtered, trying to shove the guard. "This is my wife, my house. Mama, you can't do this. You're destroying everything." "Everything worth saving was destroyed long ago, Marco," I said, watching the guards firmly escort him out, his shouts fading down the hall. "You'll regret this, Mama. I'll make you pay. Lucia will hate you." Silence rushed back in, thick and heavy. Lucia sobbed quietly, trembling. I gathered her close. "Shh, Cara, he's gone. You're safe now. I'm here, always." But the damage was done. The illusion of her marriage, however toxic, was shattered. The path to healing just got infinitely harder, and the real battle for her future had only begun. Kicked out, penniless, and exposed, Marco's rage is now a direct threat to Lucia's fragile recovery. Can Sophia shield her daughter-in-law from the storm she unleashed? And what happens when the man with nothing left has nothing left to lose? The hospital walls won't hold him back. Marco's expulsion from the hospital was merely the overture. His fury, now a tangible force, sought new targets. Odora called, her voice tight with urgency. "Sophia, he went straight to Oakwood Lane. Police were called again by the super. He was pounding on the door, screaming about breaking in, claiming ownership. Thank God the new locks held and the patrol car was still stationed there." My blood ran cold. The apartment, Lucia's sanctuary, the place she'd just begun to associate with safety, was under siege. Is Lucia safe? For now,
He left when the cops threatened arrest for trespassing and criminal mischief. But he's out there, Sophia, angry, broke, and blaming you and her for his ruin." Odora sighed. "He's also been making calls to unsavory characters. I checked his known associates after the loan shark discovery. Names came up: Darius the Knife Moretti, Rico Fingers Bellini, men who collect debts permanently." The implications were horrifying. Marco, cornered and desperate, might lead them straight to Lucia, thinking she had hidden money or could be coerced. Or worse, he might try to leverage her safety to get back at me. My protective instincts surged, warring with the cold pragmatism that had carried me this far. I couldn't lock Lucia in a vault, but I could make her invisible.
That afternoon, I moved her. With Dr. Thorne's discreet help and Odora's legal cover, we transferred Lucia to a private rehabilitation facility specializing in trauma recovery. Discreet, secure, miles from Oakwood Lane. It was expensive, funded by the last of the car sale proceeds, but necessary. As the ambulance carried her away, her hand gripping mine, whispering, "Thank you, Mama Sophia," I felt a flicker of hope amidst the exhaustion. She was safe. For now. But Marco found me. 2 days later, as I was leaving the rehab center, a battered Honda Civic screeched to a halt. Marco jumped out, looking gaunt, wild-eyed, fueled by desperation. He blocked my path on the sidewalk. "Please, Mama," he begged, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "Just $500, that's all I need, to get out of town, to disappear. They're going to kill me, I swear. Moretti's men were at my cousin's place last night. They'll find me here next." He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "You have to help me. You're my mother." I looked at the man reduced to begging on a public street, the ghost of the arrogant boy I'd raised haunting his features. The journal entries flashed in my mind, the slaps, the stolen heirlooms, the terror in Lucia's eyes, the man who turned off the heat, the man who drove past the hospital. "Let them find you, Marco," I said, my voice devoid of inflection. I pulled my arm free, not roughly, but with finality. "You made your choices. You chose the dice over your wife. You chose lies over love. You chose to destroy what was given to you. Now you face the consequences, alone." I walked around him, got into my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him collapse to his knees on the curb, head in his hands. A pang, sharp but fleeting. Then the familiar steel settled back into my bones. Mercy for him would be cruelty to Lucia and to myself. The path of least resistance, giving him money, led only back to the abyss. He had to hit bottom. Truly, irrevocably. Homeless, hunted, and utterly broken, Marco makes a desperate plea. Will his mother's heart finally crack, or is this the brutal mercy he needs to finally change? And what terrifying step do Marco's dangerous creditors take next? 6 months. Autumn painted the city in fiery golds and deep crimsons. The air carried a crisp, clean chill that smelled of wood smoke and fallen leaves, a far cry from the suffocating humidity of that fateful summer. I sat on the balcony of 215 Oakwood Lane, now truly Lucia's home. The scent wasn't damp decay or stale smoke, but fresh thyme from the window boxes and the faint, comforting aroma of Lucia's chamomile tea brewing inside. Inside, Lucia moved with a quiet confidence that still amazed me. She was painting at her easel, bathed in the late afternoon sun streaming through the bay window. Her canvas held a delicate watercolor of the old oak tree in the park below, its leaves a riot of autumn color. She was still slender, and a slight stiffness remained in her movements, remnants of the pneumonia and the long illness. But the hunted emptiness in her eyes was gone, replaced by a steady, thoughtful light. Life, fragile but undeniable, pulsed within her. "You know, Mama Sophia," she said, dipping her brush into a cup of water, her voice calm and strong. "She started calling you Mom last month. Every time she says it, it feels like coming home." She smiled, a real, warm smile that reached her eyes. "I started that job at the Central Library last week, rare books restoration. The pay isn't much, but it's mine. And the quiet, it suits me." She set the brush down, turning to face me, her gaze direct and grateful.
After everything, it's important for me to know I can stand on my own feet."
"That's wonderful, Kara," I said, my heart swelling. "Truly." I reached across the small table, covering her hand with mine. "But don't worry about money. You know we have a cushion from the car sale and my savings. Let me help." She shook her head gently, a strand of dark hair escaping her braid. "I appreciate it, Mama, more than words can say. But this job, this life I'm building, I need to earn it, to feel I've earned my place in it." Her strength humbled me. She wasn't just surviving, she was rebuilding, brick by careful brick, on her own terms. We rarely spoke his name. It was as if uttering Marco would summon the darkness back into our sunlit rooms. The walls, repainted a soft, warm peach, held no trace of him. We'd scrubbed the apartment clean, not just of dirt, but of memory. I sold my logistics business up north. My capable deputies now ran it smoothly. The sale gave me freedom. Freedom to be present for Lucia without smothering her. Freedom to live simply. I'd bought the small studio apartment in the building next door, close enough to check in, share meals, offer quiet support, but far enough to let her forge her own path. We weren't bound by blood anymore, but by shared scars and a hard-won peace. We were family, we redefined. 6 months later, Lucia is thriving. But is the past truly buried? And what does the future hold for a mother and daughter-in-law who chose each other over blood? This fragile peace may be tested. I decided to walk to the bakery before sunset. The ritual, bringing Lucia her favorite cinnamon-kissed pain au chocolat, was one I cherished. The autumn air was crisp, ringing with the chatter of squirrels and the distant laughter of children playing tag in the park. I walked slowly, savoring the simple peace, the weight of constant vigilance finally lifting. My path took me past Suds and Sparkle, the busy car wash on the corner. Usually, I barely registered it. Today, something snagged my attention. At the far bay, under the harsh fluorescent lights, stood a huge, mud-splattered black Jeep Wrangler. A man in soaked-through gray coveralls, thin and stooped, moved with frantic energy around it. He scrubbed the fender with a rag, his movements jerky, almost desperate, as if trying to erase something invisible. His face, turned away, was wind-burned, etched with deep lines of exhaustion I wouldn't have recognized, until he paused, straightened slightly, and glanced towards the street. Time froze. It was Marco. My steps slowed, but I didn't stop. His hands, once carefully manicured, used only for steering wheels and cocktail glasses, were raw, red, and chapped from cold water and harsh chemicals. He looked older, diminished, swallowed by the oversized uniform. He felt my gaze. He turned. Our eyes met across the strip of asphalt separating us. A narrow road, but an immeasurable chasm.
"Marco, no!" Lucia cried out, shrinking back, her monitor alarm blaring as her pulse spiked. Nurses rushed in. A security guard I'd quietly arranged with Dr. Thorne stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Marco's chest. "Sir, you need to leave. Now. You're disturbing a critical patient." "Get your hands off me," Marco sputtered, trying to shove the guard. "This is my wife, my house. Mama, you can't do this. You're destroying everything." "Everything worth saving was destroyed long ago, Marco," I said, watching the guards firmly escort him out, his shouts fading down the hall. "You'll regret this, Mama. I'll make you pay. Lucia will hate you." Silence rushed back in, thick and heavy. Lucia sobbed quietly, trembling. I gathered her close. "Shh, Kara. He's gone. You're safe now. I'm here. Always." But the damage was done. The illusion of her marriage, however toxic, was shattered. The path to healing just got infinitely harder, and the real battle for her future had only begun. Kicked out, penniless and exposed, Marco's rage is now a direct threat to Lucia's fragile recovery.
Can Sophia shield her daughter-in-law from the storm she unleashed? And what happens when the man with nothing left has nothing left to lose? The hospital walls won't hold him back. Marco's expulsion from the hospital was merely the overture. His fury, now a tangible force, sought new targets. Odora called, her voice tight with urgency. Sophia, he went straight to Oakwood Lane. Police were called again by the super. He was pounding on the door, screaming about breaking in, claiming ownership. Thank God the new locks held, and the patrol car was still stationed there. My blood ran cold. The apartment, Lucia's sanctuary, the place she'd just begun to associate with safety, was under siege. Is Lucia safe? For now. He left when the cops threatened arrest for trespassing and criminal mischief. But he's out there, Sophia, angry, broke, and blaming you and her for his ruin. Odora sighed. He's also been making calls to unsavory characters. I checked his known associates after the loan shark discovery. Names came up. Darius, the Knife, Moretti, Rico, Fingers, Bellini. Men who collect debts permanently. The implications were horrifying. Marco, cornered and desperate, might lead them straight to Lucia, thinking she had hidden money or could be coerced. Or worse, he might try to leverage her safety to get back at me. My protective instinct surged, warring with the cold pragmatism that had carried me this far. I couldn't lock Lucia in a vault, but I could make her invisible. That afternoon, I moved her. With Dr. Thorne's discreet help and Odora's legal cover, we transferred Lucia to a private rehabilitation facility specializing in trauma recovery. Discreet, secure, miles from Oakwood Lane. It was expensive, funded by the last of the car sale proceeds, but necessary. As the ambulance carried her away, her hand gripping mine, whispering, "Thank you, Mama Sophia," I felt a flicker of hope amidst the exhaustion. She was safe, for now.
Rehook. With the past finally severed, can true healing begin? What does the future hold for Sophia and Lucia? And is Marco truly beyond redemption? Or is this the first step towards his own reckoning? Share your hopes for their tomorrow. That is the story, my dear listeners. A story woven with threads of love that blinded, betrayal that cut deep, and a courage found only when the well of forgiveness runs dry. It's about the terrifying moment a mother realizes protecting her child sometimes means letting go of the idea of that child and choosing instead to protect the innocent victim from that child. Oilia, as I was known then, didn't act out of cruelty, but out of a fierce, desperate love for Lucia, a love that demanded she become the shield Lucia's own husband had shattered. Was it right? Was it moral? I've wrestled with that in the quiet hours. Some say a mother's heart should forgive everything. But what if the everything includes watching your child systematically destroy another human being? What if forgiveness becomes an accessory to ongoing harm? There is a line, I learned, etched not in stone, but in the blood and tears of the victim. When Marco turned off the heat while Lucia shivered with fever, when he stole her grandmother's pearls, when he drove past the hospital laughing, he crossed it. He ceased to be my son in that moment. He became the architect of her suffering. My duty shifted. It was no longer to him, but to her, to the woman who called me Mom. Would I have left him at the bottom if he hadn't crossed that line with the heating and the medicine? Perhaps not. Perhaps the path would have led to intervention, rehab, hard conversations. But he did cross it, repeatedly, and the cost of staying on the old path, enabling, excusing, hoping, was Lucia's life. I chose to sever the rot to save the healthy part of the tree. It was brutal. It was lonely, but it was necessary. Now, sitting with Lucia on our shared balcony, watching her paint the golden leaves, I know. The love I have for her, the family we've built from the ashes, is worth more than clinging to a toxic ghost. Marco? He's out there, washing cars. Maybe one day he'll find his own path to redemption, far from us. But that's his journey, not mine. My journey is here, with the daughter I gained through heartbreak, sharing cinnamon rolls and quiet strength. So, I ask you,
Where do you draw the line? When does love demand we let go? Is there ever a point where cutting someone off is the most loving act? I've shared my truth. Now, I want to hear yours. Which city are you listening from? What would you have done in my shoes? Let's meet in the comments. Share your stories, your struggles, your hard-won wisdom. If this story resonated, if it made you think, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others find their way. And if you believe in stories that challenge us, that show the raw, beautiful complexity of human choices, subscribe. There are more life stories coming. Tales of resilience, tough love, and finding light after the longest night. Thank you for listening. With love, respect, and the quiet strength of hard choices, I'm Sophia Rossi. Until next time.